Well, good morning, viewers. Today we're back working on this 2007 Nissan Frontier. I managed to acquire a used intelligent power distribution module, which is really just a relay fuse box. That number 646-11074 is the aftermarket Hollander part number for this. Now that is out of according to the VIN number, I believe, that it came from, a 2007 Xterra. The one that it calls for, according to the Hollander parts catalog, is a 7.5. Now I don't know what's different between the two, but I'm going to try this one because I got it for trial purpose at no charge, so I can plug it in and see if it eliminates the ECM power relay from being turned on all the time. There is some corrosion in that fuse panel. You can see it in the connector. Those two pins are corroded, and I expect there to be more. So I'm going to change this out and see what happens. I think the modifications to the fuse panel here, these two relays installed, have something to do with the fact that this vehicle was originally born and sold in the US and was imported to Canada. And in Canada, we have to have daytime running lights that meet Canadian motor vehicle standards. So I think that stuff was put on there to work around the daytime running lights. Why they didn't put an engineered kit in there, I don't know. But that's secondary. I had taken both of those aftermarket relays out and it didn't eliminate the problem. So we're going to look at that after the fact. First of all, we want to get this thing running and see how this used fuse panel reacts. So comparing these two fuse panels, they have the same fuses across the top, same 5 relays across the top, same electrical plugs by looking at it, same fuses in here. I don't see anything different about them. Comparing all the pins and the fuses, they're all in the same places. So we're going to plug it in and see what happens. We've got nothing to lose. So, although there's corrosion in this thing, and it happens to be corroded on the 2 pins, that one pin there in the bottom right-hand corner by my thumb is the control pin for the relay. You can see that the power is still on. I've got the ignition key off, and even with that new fuse panel in there. And if I unplug this connector, let's see, I gotta get a pick tool here. Oh, it's on the bottom. If I unplug this connector, if I can get at it, it turns the light off. So the circuit is grounded somewhere else. If I recall correctly, it was the brown wire here on this. The PCM is supposed to ground that. Well, we gotta investigate a little further. So with that connector unplugged, the relay turns off. So this brown wire, which just happens to be corroded, is being grounded somewhere. Now that goes to the ECU here, and the ECU is supposed to supply ground, but only when it sees the ignition on, unless there's another feed of some kind in there. I suppose I could cut this brown wire temporarily. I don't want to try to de-pin it because it's a pain in the ass to get these terminals out. I'm going to disconnect the ECU. This is the engine control module over here. I'll see if I can disconnect that. See, somebody's been in here before because they got the bolt from the washer fluid filler spout. I wonder if that comes out of there. Yes, it does. Just wondering how you get that connector off the ECU. Let's plug this back in. So the light is on over there, you see it. I'm going to try and unplug. I don't know which one of these connectors is the one for... No, that didn't kill it. So let's try the bottom connector. So disconnecting that connector turns off the... So I'm going to check to see if there's a ignition feed coming into this that shouldn't be here. Because for some reason the key is off now, and there's power to the control side, or there's ground to the control side of that relay. He did say he had another ECM for this, but he put it in and it didn't work, but it's probably because of security it didn't work. Well, I'm going to get a pinout for the ECU and start checking the wires on the ECU. So looking at the Mitchell versions of the wiring diagrams, that control circuit is pin 111 on the 40-pin connector, the bottom one. And on the diagram here, the acronym is SSOFF. And that comes from the actual control side of that ECM relay. So I'm going to look at Snap-on's component ID or component testing, see what they labeled it. What pin number was it? 111, I think. I think 111. Scroll doesn't work on here. So 111 is one of these pins. This one here, and that one there. Now it could be that there's an input to the ECM that's keeping the ECM from going to sleep. Oh, SSOFF, self shut off. See how nice it is when they break it down for us? So it is ECM relay. So what we have to determine is if we have an ignition feed into the ECM that's waking the ECM up, or it's requesting that ECM turn that relay on. We know it's turning it on, but on disconnecting the wire, the connector, it's removing the ground side. I'm going to print out of the ECM connectors. See if I can print this screen. So here is the ECM connector view pinout. It's 10 pages of paper, but I'm going to print it off because it's easier that way. And it explains on each terminal the wire color, the function of the circuit. So we got to identify key switch powers, make sure there are no key switch powers that are live when they shouldn't be, because maybe we have a failed ignition switch and it's sending a voltage to the ECM, waking it up, because the ECM is supplying the ground for that relay. Get some printed papers out here and highlight the circuits. So on that 40-pin connector, pin 109 is ignition switch power, and pin 116 Sorry, that's the wrong one. I'm on the wrong one. Because this is a harness side. This is looking at, that's what the HS stands for. That's looking at the back of the connector. So let me double check. So pin 109 has no voltage on it with the key off. It should have power with the key on. Pin 111, which is 2 pins that way, is battery voltage because it's coming from the control side of the relay, and if I touch a test light to it, it turns the relay on. I'm going to see if we have power on this pin, or 12 volts on this pin when we turn the key in the run position. Set this up so you guys can see it. That should be 12 volts or system voltage with the key in the run position. Yes, it is. So I'm going to see if I can find any other wires with a problem. I'm going to test the grounds. I'm going to load test the grounds on here. The grounds are pins 115 and 116, which is across from the power pins. So I'll test this ground here. That's a ground. Now this is let me get a proper probing pin in here. Then I will load test it with a light to see that it's good. Okay, so I got the voltmeter connected to 12 volts on the positive side, and I got it in one of the ground pins, and it reads 12.5, but we're going to load test it with a light. Drops to 12.2, so that's good. So that ground is okay. Let's move it to the second ground pin. Again, open circuit is 12.5. Drops to 12.2. So I think the grounds are good. So it seems like the ECM is grounding that relay when it shouldn't be. I'm going to go through and check, see if there's any other ignition switch powers. I could only find one in the information, but I'm going to double check. So I've confirmed power from the ignition switch on pin 109, and it goes away when you turn the key off. There's no voltage present there, even unloaded. That's the only ignition input is 109. 121 is battery power all the time, and 119 and 120 are switched on by that PCM relay, the power relay. So it appears that the PCM is grounding that power relay when it shouldn't be. That's pin 110, sorry, 111 is the relay control. So theoretically needs a new ECM. I think what I'm going to do is modify the circuit and put an external relay in to kill power to that PCM relay, or kill the ground to the PCM relay. Otherwise we've got to put an ECM in this thing, and then we got to deal with the VIN mismatch and the security. As far as I know, everything else is working. I'm not sure if that fuse box is going to work properly, but it seems to be functioning the same way as the original one. So let's see if we can figure something out here. So investigating those extra relays, they are tied into the high beam and low beam circuit, I imagine, to enable or make a workaround for daytime running lights because this vehicle was imported from the US. So I've taken all that aftermarket junk out. I'm going to fix up the wires. We're going to install a relay in here that is ignition controlled. I'm sure I can find an ignition feed wire there to simulate what the ECM does to grounding that ECM relay. So I removed the Scotch locks and fixed the wires. I had to extend one wire. The blue was for high beam and the red is low beam. And they had one wire tied into this pink wire, which is live with that relay on. Imagine that. So that's aggravating it. So this wire, if I ground it, turns on the relay. Now I'm looking at a parasitic draw right now of 220, 230 milliamps. But I've got the key in the ignition and I've got my VCI plugged in underneath the dash for the scan tool. As you can see it flashing down there. So let's take the key out of the ignition because there's that light around the key. And let's unplug the VCI. I just want to make sure that we don't have a parasitic draw after the interior lights go out. Before I hook up that relay or put in the aftermarket relay to work around here. 3 amps. Let's let this thing go to sleep. $122 milliamps. 119 milliamps. Let's make sure it's zeroed. $125 milliamps. So something is still creating a slight parasitic drop, but let's give it a few minutes to see if it stabilizes lower than that. So I see he's got a solar charger plugged into a cigarette lighter adapter. I wonder if that's creating a slight draw. This is going to turn the interior lights on, but let's unplug this solar adapter. Not sure that that's live anyways, but let's see. So now the interior lights are on, it's 2 amps. Didn't take very long before for the interior lights to go off. Now we're down to 99, 97, 96, 95. Let's try zeroing this thing again. That's a problem with these amp clamps is they drift. Put it on there. 135 milliamps. So something is still drawing 100 to 135 milliamps. But if I ground this, if I put that wire in to connect this circuit to the actual ECM, it draws 800 milliamps because you can turn the relay on and it powers up some accessories. I got a light bulb in there, so that's another 200 milliamps. Well, we're not out of the woods yet, but I wonder if I should put the right. I wonder if I should put the right one back in there just in case that's creating an issue. Too many variables here. So I put the original fuse panel back in and it acts the same way. I've got about 130 milliamp draw. I removed 2 of the fuses that were powered up here. This fuse here, and this 15, and the 230s on the bottom row, which had power to them, and nothing changed. So I'm going to set up to do graph the parasitic draw, and I've got the door open and the latch held shut with a pair of vice grips. There's a fuse panel in the glove box. I'm going to check that. So you can see we got a 140 milliamp draw, and it spikes up rhythmically. That's the security LED blinking on the dash. So I'm going to watch this while I pull fuses. Normally I would check voltage drop across the fuses, but this thing shuts down very quickly, so I'm going to watch this while I go in the dash and pull the fuses. So removed every fuse one at a time while I watch the amp draw up there. And this one, when I remove it and plug it back in, causes a module to boot up. And it says on the fuse panel cover here, battery 10 amp, electronic parts. That's what it says, electronic parts. Now looking at this vehicle to see if there's anything else in the console that's plugged in. There's a cigarette lighter adapter in there. I don't know if there's anything in the back seat. This truck is absolutely disgusting. So I wonder if there's a fuse panel on the driver's side. None of these fuses anyways. I wonder if it could be, well, it's roughly 90 milliamps now. While I opened the door and turned the interior lights on. Hope I didn't blow the fuse in my meter. It's over 500 milliamps right now. So it's back down to 92 milliamps. I'm going to check the other side of the truck to see if there's another fuse panel on the other side. I see he's got trailer brake controller on here. I wonder if there could be corrosion in the trailer brake plug. I don't know if he's got battery power back here or not. That's not a 7-pole, that's not electric brake control. Wonder how he's got the trailer brakes circuit wired. Damn. So with that ECM relay connected to the ground and powered up like it does with the ECM in there, it turns on several circuits and it draws about 800 milliamps. I got to take my test light out. So it's still over half an amp. Now I'm wondering, I'm 99% sure there's a problem with that ECM. If you recall, this thing would not start when it was cold. Now, is that related, or is related to the ECM failing? In other words, if I fix this temporarily with a relay to supply the ground to the ECM relay, which I can easily do, is that going to fix this cold start issue? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to park this thing outside. I'm sure it'll start right now, but I'm going to park this thing outside and see if the vehicle starts when I connect the ground, or if it's the ECM failing internally, causing a no start, or crank no start when it's cold. Be a pain in the ass to wire up an external relay in here to simulate what the ECM does if it's still not going to start cold. because there was 3 problems. There was a parasitic draw. As you can see, that's going to kill the battery pretty damn fast. And there was a no start on a cold. It sat for 2 hours the other day. Mind you, it was -30 out here. And it didn't start. I had to push it in. So I'm going to park this thing outside the shop and leave it till tomorrow morning to see what happens. So I noticed with that ECM relay powered up that there's a hissing noise. It's really quiet in my shop right now because the furnace and compressor is not running for a change. And that noise is actually coming from the ECM. I'm going to put the microphone next to it. I'm hoping that it picks it up. It's not coming from the fuse panel. It's coming from actually inside the ECM. Like a s. So that's interesting. But again, we're going to park this thing outside. I'm going to leave the ground wire off the ECM relay so that because that noise goes away when I take this away. You can hear the ECM relay power up. Interesting. Well, I'm going to see if it starts like this. It should. Well, it runs now, but I went to back it out of the shop and just instinctively I hit the switch to roll the driver's window down. Now it won't go back up. This truck is just full of surprises. So the switch just pops out from the bottom, and I've identified the white-red wire as power in, and I've got a 3 amp test light wired across. So this is up and this is down, and it lights the 3 amp test light in parallel with the bulb, or with parallel with the motor. So either there's a problem between here and the motor, or the motor is worn out. I tried banging on the window, banging on the door while I held it up. When the furnace was up, I could hear the motor kind of make a clunk. So it's going to need a window motor as well by the looks of it. Why did I roll it down? So it's the next morning. It's about -10 outside. I reconnected that ground for the ECM relay. And where's the keys? I'm going to try and see if it'll start, if I can get the key in the ignition. Man, more than one key on the key ring. Okay, I'm going to have to push it in. So fixing that, I think that ECM is failing due to temperature. Let me see if I can hear that thing buzzing this morning. What's funny, there's no sound from it. Well, I'm going to try and push it in the shop. So the customer bought a used ECM, and he had tried this in there, but I know it won't work without proper programming or a security workaround. This number here doesn't match the number that the salvage yard gave me. I think this is, he said this is out of an Xterra. The number they gave me was 237 10 Zebra Papa 52A. I believe that is, in the Hollander number is 590-50917. But again, we're going to try and put it in there and see if it'll at least communicate. So this is still the original ECM. I got a battery charger hooked to it. I got the key on. I'm checking for codes. No codes in the ECM. Let's look at data. Because before, when I would crank it, I would lose communication with the ECM. And I had a battery charger on. It wasn't because the battery was going flat. And as you heard, it cranked fairly normally considering it wasn't plugged in. And I will watch RPM and battery voltage. Let's see if we can see something else that would be useful, such as injector pulse width. Not on that side. Maybe not in this data list. But let's watch what happens when I crank it. I'm just going to crank it for a couple of seconds. See, I lose communication. I did not turn the key off. And there goes my furnace. So we're going to try and swap out this ECM. I know it's not going to work, but I'm going to see if we get an RPM signal or not. Maybe I'll scan it for codes now that I did that cranking event. And I got the ECM relay grounded so that it's turned on. So it's not a case of that. No codes. Let's get this ECM swapped in. So there's the other used ECM installed, just temporary bolted in. And I reconnected this control wire for the relay, the ECM power relay, and it's not grounded now. So that ECM is definitely defective. I'm going to see what we get for data and codes out of this thing now. So it cranks, but it doesn't start. Let's see what codes we got generated in here. NATS malfunction. I believe that's like passive anti-theft. P1610, 1611 is an anti-theft code if I recall correctly. But regardless, I want to see if we got an RPM signal while cranking. So let's watch this RPM signal while I crank it. So we got an RPM signal and we don't lose communication. So we need an ECM, but I don't know if I can. Let's see if we can pull the VIN number out of this thing. See if this ECM is compatible. ECM part number. That would probably be beneficial. According to the salvage yard, 23710 Zebra Papa. It's supposed to be a 52A and it's a 41A. So it's probably not compatible, as well as being, let's see if we can get the VIN number. Maybe it's under generic functions. Vehicle identification number, there we go. Key on, engine off. If it ran, I wouldn't be doing this. Another thing I could do is check that pin 111 to see if it's grounded all the time at the ECM with the ECM. So this is out of a 2006 code 4-liter. It's a code W engine. Let's copy this VIN number and decode it and see what it comes up as. So that VIN decodes as a 2006 Pathfinder with a 4-liter V6. Now the Pathfinder, I'm pretty sure, was all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. So I tried to relearn keys with the snap-on scan tool, and it said vehicle-specific data unavailable. So I'm going to try the Think tool. So this will pull up the VIN. I had loaded the VIN from the original ECM. Wonder if this will give me the option to rewrite the VIN. I'm sure this customer can't return this used ECM, so they've got nothing to lose. Yeah, Nissan Pathfinder. Now some of this may be misleading because this is decoding as a Nissan Pathfinder. So I'll pick up when we get to the end of this network scan. So I use these sheet metal vice grips to grab the top of the window and pry it and pull it up. Customer said he was aware of the window problem. He didn't roll it down. So we got the window closed now at least. We're still doing a network scan. So let's have a look at the report. Please enter the correct mileage. What difference does it make? 250. This thing has airbag problems. It has a seat sensor or something, apparently. Where's the report? Well, that's good. All right, well, let's go into each individual controller. CAN communication circuit, vehicle speed circuit, and the instrument cluster. Low reference, BCM. ECM, we got the ID, Discord, immune, immobilizer, ECM. CAN communication fault. So I don't think this instrument cluster is going to work. Or this ECM, I should say, instrument cluster. Let's go into the ECM and see if we have the ability to change the VIN with this scan tool. I doubt it. Not that that's going to work. Actuation test, work support. Let's see what work support suggests. VIN registration. Input VIN of the vehicle. Okay, I'm going to try this. Got nothing to lose. The ECM can't be returned. Okay, I get the VIN from the truck. So that is the correct VIN. Execute. Then we'll go back and re-ID the vehicle and see if it recognizes it. Command succeeded. Turn ignition switch off for 10 seconds. I don't want to close the door because I got the window rolled up. Let's go back and re-ID the vehicle. Let's see if it rewrote the VIN. Ends in 420346. I'm not liking this. Oh, I got to turn the key back on. Silly me. Let's try again. Let's do it right with the key on this time. Come on, you can do it. That is correct VIN. So let's do another network scan now based on 2007 Nissan Frontier. Automatic search. Confirmed. Yes. Smart scan. Come on, Snap-on, you need to get with the game. How is it that a startup company like Top Don and Think Tool can outperform a Snap-on scan tool that's worth not worth three, costs 3 times as much money, and does less features? We'll pick up when we get to the end of this scan because Nissans take forever. So I noticed the customer had taken this bottom bolt out of the ECM and left it out or dropped it and lost it, which made it easy for me to get it out because the intelligent power distribution module housing is right here. Now the upper bolts are slotted where you can get access to them. So I slotted this bottom hole and I put a lower bolt in there. I did not tighten it yet because I'm not sure this is going to work. But if Nissan had slotted the bottom hole like they did the top one, you could leave the bolt in there and just loosen it and pull a module straight up. So we have CAN circuit fault in the instrument cluster. No data, service, low tire pressure, ECM. We still have the 2. Let's clear. Yes. Let's see what happens. Didn't clear the ECM codes. Oh, it's still doing it. The airbag codes. Cleared everything except the airbag. Let's see what the airbag is. Crash area sensor. Crash area sensor. current and past. In the ECM we have lock module. Okay, I'm going to see if I can find out where we do a relearn procedure. So that's funny. The NATS system did not respond. Intelligent key. I wonder if that function is done by the BCM. Special function. Anti-lock outset, battery saver, ID registration, horn, trunk, remote control ID registration, theft alarm trigger. I'm going to look around in here. So I went into special function and it says writing data for replacement CPU. Let's see if that works. I can't find it in the BCM functions, and the NAT system seems to be integrated into one of the other modules. Let's see what gives us. Could also try hot functions. It's taking a while. So I went back to the topology screen and I noticed NAT's anti-theft system, that function didn't work. It didn't do anything what it's supposed to do. I guess NAT stands for Nissan Anti-Theft, because PATS was already taken and PassLock was already taken. After replacing or installing operation when performing key registration. Let's try this first. Replace ECM used part. Erases all registered key IDs, therefore all of the customer keys should be obtained before starting. Well, I only have one key, I'm sure, but I can deal with that. If the customer has two keys, I would be very surprised. Due to the following, vehicle condition is out of test condition, no response from the vehicle ECU. Remember that this may not have the NATS module. It might be integrated into one of the other modules. When performing key registration, register erase key. Let's try that. Erases all registered key IDs, therefore, yes, okay. I'm sure this is going to crash just the same. Yeah. Because this actually has iKey, but it doesn't respond. Now, I don't know if that's a problem with the vehicle or if that's supposed to be a function of the ECM. Remember, this ECM is not the right one for the vehicle. Well, I think we're putting back the original ECM. Maybe it'll start now that it's warm. And tell the customer he has to get the correct ECM before we can try to program it. Okay, so I got the original ECM plugged back in. It's been in the shop for about an hour and a half now. So hopefully it's warmed up enough to start. So we're going to put this thing outside. Put this thing outside and see about getting another ECM.